Hello, salam, adab, and a very good morning to all of you. I welcome you all to this inaugural session of the one-day national seminar on interrogating the 18th and 19th centuries Indian history. Respected Chair, Professor Ainul Hasan Sahab, Honorable Vice Chancellor, today's keynote speaker, Professor Deepak Kumar Sahab, Honorary Professor, Department of History, MANUU. Today's chief guest, Professor V. Shinde Sir, CSIR Bhatnagar Fellow at CCMB and former Vice Chancellor, Deccan College, Pune. It is indeed a pleasure and honor to have such a great group of scholars working on different fields pertaining to Indian history. This seminar is the second seminar since 2018, the year when we held our first seminar, the national seminar. The number may not seem very promising, and I believe that you would give us a little relaxation given the fact that we are relatively a very young department, and also because of the fact that the kind of devastating impact of the COVID-19 that seriously disrupted the possibility to bring people together and hold conferences and talks in person. But now, since the things are back on track, we are committed to hold such conferences and seminar in future as well, and to ensure that there is a congenial environment in the university and the department to further the academic and intellectual exercise. However, I would also like to point out that during this period, we had collaborated with different universities and research institutes. We had organized workshops, symposiums, online talks and conversations on different ideas and themes. We invited people belonging to different streams and to initiate the dialogue and conversations. So that was pretty good and quite a fun ride during and even after the pandemic. I would also like to point out that, and put it on record, that this seminar, that is the one-day seminar, is being organized with the financial support and assistance from the university, and I must thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Ainul Hasan Sahab, for his encouragement and for his support. Ladies and gentlemen, the idea to have a one-day seminar on the theme that is the interrogating 18th and 19th centuries in Indian history, the fundamental idea behind this seminar was to initiate a conversation around important developments that took place during these two centuries. We, as scholars of social sciences, and particularly the scholars of history, know and understand the fact that these two centuries mark an important phase in the transition to modernity in the case of Indian context, and also they are represented to bring something that is worth discussing in the global context as well. So initially, when we were trying to think of an idea to bring a very limited number of scholars working on the 18th and 19th centuries, we were puzzled with the question, what would be the theme? And we tried very hard, and we discussed this in the department as well, and the consensus among the members was to bring scholars working particularly on areas other than politics. Because we all know that the politics was an important change during this period, but our discussion and conversation should not be exclusively limited to the political arena, but we should transcend the political, as it were, the sphere, and then go deep into what was happening in culture, society, and literature. So you would find we have invited 6 scholars from the University of Hyderabad and from the University of Osmania, and some members from within the university. They'll primarily talk about not majorly politics, but other aspects of the 18th and 19th centuries. To say a few more words about the idea and the conceptualization of the seminar theme, may I now request Professor Danish Moeen Sahab, Head Department of History, to say a few words about this and to formally welcome our guests. Professor Danish Moeen.
Thank you, Ikram. Yeah, well, you have already given a lot of information regarding the concept and all this, so you have slightly reduced my work to explain. Anyway, Honorable Vice Chancellor Sahab, Professor Syed Ainul Hasan, the keynote speaker of the department of this seminar, Professor Deepak Kumar, Honorary Professor in Department of History, and a mentor of the Department of History of MANUU. And chief guest, today's chief guest of the seminar, Professor Vasant Shinde. He's generally known as Shinde sir in the academic circle of, particularly his student call him Shinde sir. And I also used to call him Shinde sir. And he is the former vice chancellor and from Deccan College, but is specifically known for the Deccan College, which is known for Paradise of Indian Archaeology. So he belongs to that institution. And my dear colleague, my dear Ikram, who is the coordinator of this seminar, respected participants, ladies and gentlemen, on the behalf of the Department of History, I welcome you for this inaugural session in the department of this seminar. In this gathering, I am missing our dynamic dean. She is not here. She is out of station, so she is not participating in this. And we also miss our registrar due to some health issue. He is not able to come here. So my thanks to them for their kind support for this work, for this seminar. You know why we have been organizing this seminar on 18th century or 19th century. This period needs reintegrating. Why it is needed? That is one question. You know, when we talk about the 18th, 19th century, the political development is well known to the student of history that it was decline of Mughal Empire and emergence of priestly estate, and finally we came to the power of British India, and the British started controlling the country. But this is not only the history, political history. As we said, we are not giving emphasis on the political history. We are mainly deciding on the other factor of the history. What other factor we are going to, why and how these are being investigated? That is a very important question. The 18th century is the period when we have witnessed, earlier what we witnessed, not only the political changes, but social changes, economic changes, technological development has very well witnessed to every walk of life. Either you see in technology, in science and technology, or any agriculture, military technology, wherever you talk, you found the technology has developed and it made important changes in the society. Now the question arises how these changes has to be analyzed, how these questions has to be discussed. And what were the main sources we are going to discuss? Because this is the period when we were earlier mainly confining ourselves to the Persian sources, particularly when we are talking about the 16th or 15th century. Now we have a period when we have different sources. That was the archival sources became very important. Then we also have the period which we give the factory records, and the Urdu says, so the vernacular languages has been used. Earlier not much has been said about the vernacular, but this period is mainly emphasis on the literature, the vernacular. Almost every language is being covered in this thing. So this is one aspect which can. How economy changes, that is also being taken care of, the how economy. I mean the technological development, I can just talk about my own area of interest, that was the currency system. If you talk about the currency system, 18th century is the period which witnessed the one important technology, that was from die stacking technique to machine stacking technique, and from machine to we started having the the currency system in the paper currency. So these development can be seen in the 1 or 2 century, and that is not only the simple development, but this development is mainly focusing on how society is changing in this manner. To work on this point, what we have done, we have importantly not given much, all different scholars from a very limited scholars have been invited, because we wanted them to give extensive lecture, extensive paper should be read. It's not only 5 minutes or 10 minutes, at least 25 minutes or half an hour they have to speak, so we can give their, understand their own work properly. And in order to complete what we have done, we have taken different aspect. I mean, what aspect we have been covering? We have been covering in the migration, labor migration from Travancore. So the area is not only one area, but region has also been covered. We have one paper is from the Travancore, that was Kerala is being discussed. Then gender studies has been taken care on this. Then architecture has been taken. Then currency pattern is also being understood. And then we have also representing in the miniature paintings and all. So various, and then we also have one marriage system in the Andhra region. So at least 2-3 regions have been covered, and apart from the art and technology, both of things and economy are being discussed in coming hours. With this, I once again welcome you all, and I must thank to my Dean and the Vice Chancellor Registrar for giving me this opportunity to conduct this course, granting the fund for this thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, and I hope that this seminar will yield fruitful results and further the academic and intellectual discussion. Now, before I invite today's keynote speaker, Professor Deepak Kumar, I must say a few words about him. I know that a lot of you already know Professor Deepak Kumar and his work, but for those of you who are not aware of the kind of works that he has done and the depth of his intellectual enterprise. Professor Deepak Kumar is one of our own. As you know, that he has been with us in the Department of History as honorary professor for the past 2 years. He is known for his immense contribution to the history of science and technology in modern India. He started his academic career from Kurukshetra University, the university which he joined in 1976 as assistant professor. And then he joined the prestigious National Institute of Science, Technology and Development Studies, Delhi, where he worked from 1983 up to 1997. And afterwards, he went on to join Jawaharlal Nehru University. And then he retired, of course, in 2020. After that, he was kind enough to join our department as honorary professor. Professor Deepak Kumar has won hearts and awards during the course of a pretty long academic career, spanning over 40 years of teaching, research, guidance, during which he has produced enormous amount of good scholars, students, professionals working in different fields. He was president of the Modern Indian Section, Indian History Congress, 60th session that was held in Calicut, December 1999. He was vice president, Association of South Asian Environmental Historians. So there is a long list and there is a lot to say about his work. And of course, he has been invited during this period from different universities, national and international, and different research institutes. But I would particularly like to highlight 2 things. One, his intellectual contribution to the field of history of society, history of science and technology, more particularly, and broadly the history of knowledge. Professor Deepak Kumar, along with his colleagues, probably for the first time initiated a dialogue and conversation around the significance that the history of science and technology carries. And one of the fundamental arguments that he makes after doing like diligent research for over 20 years, he traveled all across the country, consulted different libraries, archives, and museums, mined resources and data from those libraries and archives. And one of the fundamental points that he makes that we need to make sense of the emergence of modern disciplinary practices, such as history of science and technology, in close consultation with the emergence of colonialism in India. That is to say that how colonialism and the colonial power facilitated and created an environment in which the modern disciplinary practices of science and technology could emerge. And that was profoundly significant point. The second thing is Professor Deepak Kumar's perseverance and his commitment to pursue this very particular field of historical inquiry. Now, not many of you know that back in the 1970s and 80s, when Professor Deepak Kumar was trying to discover and unravel the mysteries of history of science and technology, the disciplinary boundaries in India back then was very narrow. There was not much room for scholars of history to embark on such a journey. People were working on history of economics. People were working on, primarily, they were economists. Then the trend changed, and the people started looking at literature. Architecture was very favorite subject for the historians and scholars, but not particularly the history of science and technology. And you would be surprised to know that Professor Deepak Kumar he was persuaded by his teachers not to pursue this field. But I believe that he is happy and he's satisfied, and sometimes very candidly he remarks, he says that मेरे टीचर कहा करते थे कि तुमको कुछ नहीं मिलेगा और मुझे खुदा भी मिला और विसाले सनम भी. With this very brief introduction, may I now request humbly today's keynote speaker, Professor Deepak Kumar. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Deepak Kumar.
Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Hassan, distinguished Professor Vasant Sindhe Sahab, Professor Danish Moin, Akramul Haq Sahab, and my friends, I'm grateful to all of you for your affection and of course the kind introduction, generous introduction which was given. It is true that the journey which began sometime in late 60s, 1960s, has been extremely fruitful and very satisfying. So I'm sure that whatever I have been able to publish should be of interest to my young friends. The theme chosen for today is interrogating 18th, 19th century. Of course, these centuries are pretty vast. Lots of things could have been said, but fine, they're close. There are two things I would like to point out here. One, the title suggests interrogation. Interrogation is a very interesting and crucial concept. We should never forget it. And interrogation requires criticality, rationality, and something, the willingness to accept, willingness to open. So this interrogation we should never forget. All generations, they have been interrogating, and they have a right to interrogate. They have a duty to interrogate. the previous. So, my young friends, I would love you to interrogate whatever I have done. Go beyond it. Interrogation will take you forward, not appreciation only. Respect is fine. It's very civil, noble. But along with respect and devotion, interrogation should go side by side. This is one thing. Second, 18th and 19th century, huge period. I'd like to bring to your kind attention, they would call it period of transition. Transition, huge transition. Actually, all periods are transition. 9th century AD, 7th century AD, 7th century BC, whichever period you look at, सब में बदलाव हो रहा है और सब खूबसूरत है. ये आपके नज़रिए पे डिपेंड करता है कहाँ आपको खूबसूरती दिखती है, कहाँ आपको माकूल दिखता है, जायज़ दिखता है. नाजायज़ भी मिलेगा आपको, साथ साथ चलता है. दुनिया का यही रूल है, यही तरीका है कि दोनों साथ साथ चलेंगे. देयर आर नो गोल्डन पीरियड्स, नो डार्क पीरियड्स. ये डिपेंड करता है कि आप जब इंटरोगेट कर रहे हैं किस नज़र से इंटरोगेट कर रहे हैं. खूबसूरती दिखेगी, ट्रांजिशन दिखेगा. अब 18th सेंचुरी जब मैं पढ़ रहा था, जब छोटा था बहुत, तो लोग ये बताते थे अरे डिक्लाइन का पीरियड है, औरंगजेब ने ऐसे सत्यानाश तो कर ही रखा था, तो क्या राजपूत पॉलिसी, तो डेक्कन पॉलिसी, तो दिस दैट, ये सारी किताबों में होती थी. आशीर्वादी लाल श्रीवास्तव और बहुत सारी किताबें होती थी, यही पढ़ते थे. मजुमदार साहब. जब और पढ़ना शुरू किया तो मज़ा आने लगा. इनफैक्ट 18th century is one of my most favorite century. I hope that 21st is also likely to be that. Enormous changes, 18th में. And it's a beautiful century. It's not only a century of decline. I understand. People say politically, Safavids decline, Ottomans decline, Manchus decline, Mughals decline. So what? People were not declining. I know very little about West Asia and the Ottomans, but given the opportunity, I would have talked later. But my limited knowledge to India made me go for, I published a long piece also in a Cambridge series of history of science only on 18th century. And I spent a month in Aligarh library and looked into some of these translations. I wish I could read Persian, but the translations, they helped me a lot. And I realized, no. We all consider Ram Mohan Roy as the father of modern India, early 19th century. But a century before him, there was one person who could have ushered in what you call modernity. 100 years ago, 100 साल पहले. And he was a bright scholar and a prince. Jai Singh, Savai Jai Singh. जयपुर जैसा आप देख रहे हैं, टाउन प्लानिंग, astronomer par excellence. And not only that, he is one of the few, probably the first, to establish some kind of a royal society of astronomers. When he brought people from all over the country, Jagannath Samrat, Vidyadhar and so on. आजकल उनके नाम सिर्फ कॉलोनी मिलेगी आपको जयपुर में, लेकिन ये थे, they were scientists, they were astronomers. They had inherited our traditional knowledge of astronomy, which was very, very strong, fairly strong. Of course, they didn't know about Copernicus, but that's not their fault. You don't have to know about everything. No. But within the system of Brahmagupta, Varahamihir and Bhaskara from 4th to 12th century, They had preserved it, and not only preserved it, enriched it with the knowledge that came from Samarkand, Bukhara, Zize-ul-Ulugh Khani, Ulugh Beg. And all this comes. And he was able to do something which no other Indian prince had done. I wish the Marathas could have done it, or others. But then Marathas were busy in other things. They are still busy, you know, you can see. So, in terms of knowledge, this is the period, 1720, when he produces Jize Muhammad Shahi. Muhammad Shah, of course, was the emperor, so he was good. But this is a remarkable document. Then he creates what is known as Jantar Mantar, Jantra, machinations, huge masonry devices which gave you the correct answer. They are scientifically correct. You may differ with, the process, that it is something which ordinary people may not be able to build or understand. Only the royalty could have done that. That's true. What was happening with Galileo was not happening here. We couldn't produce a Galileo, no doubt about it. We couldn't produce a Copernicus, so what? But there were many others who were producing things. In Kerala, you have a very strong school of mathematics, right from 13th century down to 18th century. And you have people who came very close to calculus, much before Newton. I wouldn't say calculus was done, but came to close to it. Nilakantha, 15th century astronomer from Kerala. Nilakantha talks about reason. He says everything is rooted in logic. Na tva agam moolam. Agam nahi hai. Agam means stationary, solid. Nothing. Knowledge cannot be solid or stationary. It has to be in flux. They recognize it. It has to keep changing. That's how science develops. One paradigm is removed by another paradigm. So Ptolemean paradigm reigned for 2000 years, finally removed in 16th century by Copernicus. We had those people. In fact, his labor, Nilakantha, is considered greater than Tycho Brahe. They were there. So how do 18th century inherited a huge tradition in terms of mathematics, astronomy, and medicine? Look at the compositions, the texts being written in 18th century in Persian, Sanskrit, numerous, enormous, hundreds of texts. In our society, in our country, knowledge advanced by writing commentaries, tika, tippani, commentaries. Everybody wrote. Persian scholars wrote commentaries on Al-Qanun till 19th century. We kept writing on Charak, on Shushruta, and so forth. So you have a tradition of writing commentaries. 18th century is so rich in commentaries. Alvi Sahab in Aligarh and A. Rahman, they compiled a huge, which INSA has published, huge volume on the number of texts. Stories, Persian sources, they talk about number of sources. But they need to be looked into critically and brought about. My problem was that my linguistic capabilities are fairly limited. I wish I could read Persian. I wish I could read Sanskrit. Earlier, ancient जाओ तो पाली प्राकृत सब चाहिए होता. तो linguistic variety इतनी ज़्यादा है कि उसको encompass करना ज़रा मुश्किल था. But you can always look into the text and gather what they contained. So a lot of textual analysis has been done. We have a national manuscript mission. Lots of manuscripts have been explored and so forth. Texts are significant, important. Text can be done by linguists. 18th century text was a literature, people can do that, which is very significant. But the role of a historian is to provide the context. A text must be accompanied by the context. When they combine, they become history. Text and context. So 18th century context, you will see, people talk of decline, but go to the local level, at a district level. Look at this place called Shiraz of the East. Jaunpur. Flourishing. Lucknow flourishing in 18th century. So, where is the decline? Mullah Muhammad Jaunpuri is there in 18th century. His Shamshe Bazaga. Exceptionally important text on cosmology. Those days people didn't use the term, as we use today. Up to knowledge has become so specialized that if you go to a doctor, he's expert of one finger, only this. Okay? उस ज़माने में ये नहीं था. Whole body was being taken care of. There was no one finger expert, isn't it? तो अब शमशा बाज़गा में whole cosmology is taken care of. So there is mathematics, there is physics, there is chemistry, everything there. Of course in seed form, and may be wrong. Utterly wrong. So what? Even in 19th century, there is Jagannath Samrat, you may not have heard his name, in Orissa. In 1860, he was sitting in a hamlet. His name was Jagannath Samrat. Today, Oriyas call him Pahadi, Samanto Pahadi. But hardly many people know it. Sitting in a hamlet, he produced 25,000 shlokas on astronomy. From Aryabhatta down to mid-19th century, he was so much trained and obsessed with stargazing only with a bamboo. No use of glass, no telescope. He did it. And much later, some people found out about him, and then he was given the title by the British at that time, Mahamohopadhyaya, etc. But, of course, he had not heard of Copernicus. He was steeped in the Siddhantic tradition of astronomy. Fine. ये भी कम नहीं था कि उन्होंने उसको प्रिजर्व किया, वहाँ तक आए. उनको मौका नहीं था जानने का यूरोप को. जयसिंह को भी मौका नहीं था. अरे कोपरनिकस पॉलिश है, उसको तो फ्रांस में भी लोग नहीं जान रहे थे. 100 साल लगा उसको एक्सेप्ट होने में फ्रांस में. जयसिंह ने एक मिशन भेजा जो स्पेन तक गया, इसीलिए उसको पता नहीं चला कि कोपरनिकस है. 100 साल पहले हो गया, लेकिन पता नहीं चला. अगर वो पेरिस जाता या लंदन जाता तो पता चलता. नहीं हुआ, कोई बात नहीं. Many people miss the bus. So what? Effort was there. What is important in science is effort, not the result. You keep trying. ये 18th century में बहुत मौके आए ऐसे. एग्रीकल्चर लीजिए, दरफन फलाहत लिखी गई, बहुत सारे कमेंट्रीज लिखे गए. हॉर्टिकल्चर पे, मेडिसिन पे तो पूछिए ही मत. सैकड़ों लिखे गए. दोनों ने लिखे, आयुर्वेदा ने लिखे और हकीम ने लिखे. कई तो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग मिक्सचर भी हुआ. मियाँ बोहवा का है, मादन शफा सिकंदर शाही, विच इज़ 15th सेंचुरी, लोधी पीरियड है, लेकिन 18th सेंचुरी में वो पढ़ा जा रहा है. 18th सेंचुरी में खाली शाह वलीउल्लाह का मदरसा नहीं है, खाली नादिर शाह नहीं है, उसके अलावा भी बहुत कुछ है. दरस निज़ामी है लखनऊ का, उसके करिकुलम देखिए, उसमें आपको सब मिलेगा. थियोलॉजी भी मिलेगी, फ़लसफ़ा भी मिलेगा, हिसाब भी मिलेगा. तो इस तरह से चीज़ें हो रही थी. लेकिन अब ये एक्सपेक्ट करना कि हमने रॉकेट नहीं बनाया, ये ज़रा बेवकूफ़ी होगी. या ये एक्सपेक्ट करना कि वो इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन हमारे यहाँ क्यों नहीं हुआ, ये ज़रा बेवकूफ़ी होगी. उसकी ज़रूरत हम लोगों ने नहीं समझी थी. हमने जेम्स वॉट नहीं पैदा किया, हमने गैलीलियो नहीं पैदा किया. नीलकंठ तो न्यूटन के बहुत करीब हैं. इब्न हैथम तो न्यूटन से बहुत पहले हैं, अब बहुत आगे हैं ऑप्टिक्स में. कुछ चीज़ें हुई, सर्टेन थिंग्स हैपेंड विच वी कुड हैव अवॉइडेड, बट मेनी थिंग्स हैपेंड विच शोज that Indian civilization was a thinking civilization, was a vibrant civilization, and even though we fell like a pack of cards, when the Europeans came here. Even though we fell, we didn't deserve it. We fell because of political reasons. मराठा निज़ाम ये सब आपस में लड़ते रह गए, एक एक करके उड़ गए. Because of political, which is plaguing India even today. तो ज़्यादा फ़र्क नहीं है 21वीं 18वीं में. मैं तो बहुत नज़दीक से देखता हूँ. और मैं आपका ज़्यादा वक्त नहीं लेना चाहूँगा, पता नहीं कितना है, 5 मिनट. अच्छा, और शुक्रिया. तो बोलने को तो बहुत कुछ होता दिल से, लेकिन तो दोनों में नज़दीक लगता है. अभी मुझे लग रहा है जैसे 18वीं सदी मेरे बिल्कुल कंधों पे है. आई कैन फील इट. दे आर सो क्लोज एंड सो रेलिवेंट टू अस. 19th की तो बात ही छोड़ दिए, 19th तो मोस्ट क्लोज टू अस. आज भी कोई बात होती है, लोग तकरीर में कह देते हैं इसको. देखिए इतिहास का सिग्निफिकेंस. तकरीर में किसी को अगर आपको गाली देना हो तो औरंगजेब कह दीजिए, किसी को कुछ कहना हो कह दीजिए. और आजकल मकौले भी है इनके हिट लिस्ट पे. लेकिन अपने बच्चों को भेजेंगे अमेरिका पढ़ने, सब अंग्रेजी दां, हिंदी में लिखना नहीं चाहेंगे. मकौले को गाली देंगे. भाई किस बात का? राम मोहन रॉय ने भी कहा था कि हमें दो, गिव मी वेस्टर्न लिटरेचर. विवेकानंद ने कहा. वो वेदांत और मॉडर्निटी को साथ लेके चलना चाहते थे. होल ऑफ 19th century you will find is a period of kashamkash. I don't know how to translate kashamkash. It's such a beautiful word. Dilemma. इस कशमकश में है, हमें ये भी चाहिए वो भी चाहिए, हमें जात भी चाहिए, धर्म भी चाहिए, ज्ञान भी चाहिए, विज्ञान भी चाहिए, हर चीज़ चाहिए. वो आज भी हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं. जात छोड़ी नहीं. और धर्म का तो पूछिए ही मत, उसका तो जलवा ही और है हमारे मुल्क में. आज तो और उफान पे है. वो 18वीं शताब्दी में भी था, लेकिन इस हालात में नहीं था. आप लोगों को देखिए, 18th century में ही मीर तकी मीर, क्या शायरी है उनकी. 18th century में ही आगरा के हैं. अरे नहीं भाई, जिनका आदमी नामा है, आजकल मैं भूलने बहुत लगा हूँ. हाँ, नज़ीर अकबराबादी. देखिए 18वीं के हैं, कहाँ से आपको नज़ीर मिलेंगे? बेनज़ीर हैं. 18th century is such a vibrant century. We need to interrogate, put it in a place, take a very holistic, broad view, and then enjoy it. And we can, of course, draw lessons. नज़ीर का कोई मुकाबला है? सवाल मुकाबला ही नहीं. मैं तो आजकल थैंक्स टू 21वीं शताब्दी की खूबसूरत घटना जो है वो है यूट्यूब. उस पर मैं उनको सुनता रहता हूँ. यूट्यूब से भी भाई वो भी ज्ञानवर्धन तो है ही, तो उस तरह से मैं सुनता रहता हूँ, तो मुझे वाकफियत रहती है. हर वक्त तो किताब मिलती नहीं. आने वाले वक्त में तो शायद गूगल ही यूनिवर्सिटी होगी, शायद हो भी गई है. सुना कोई चार्ट है, चैट जीपीटी मैं कहता हूँ. बच के रहिएगा, किताबें पढ़िएगा, वो ज़रूरी है. तो वो सारी आप देखेंगे तो 19th में तो कमाल के डेवलपमेंट्स हुए. जब हमारे लोग, एक नया मिडिल क्लास खड़ा हुआ जिसने नए नए डिमांड रखे. हमारे हकीम के बच्चे जाने लगे मेडिकल कॉलेज में, चाहे वो आगरा मेडिकल स्कूल खुला या कलकत्ता का मेडिकल कॉलेज हो. कुछ तो हुआ होगा. ग्रांट मेडिकल कॉलेज. एक वाक़या सुना के मैं ख़त्म करता हूँ 19th century का. ग्रांट मेडिकल कॉलेज खुला बम्बई में 1845. शिंदे साहब हमारे दोस्त हैं, तो मैंने सोचा उनको ये सुनाए. तो ग्रांट मेडिकल कॉलेज खुल तो गया, लेकिन कोई स्टूडेंट ना आए. आजकल मेडिकल कॉलेज में मार पड़ती है, उस वक्त नहीं था. अब कौन डिसेक्शन करने जाएगा? जांच चली जाएगी, डेड बॉडी छुएंगे आप, जांच चली जाएगी. नोबडी वॉज विलिंग टू कम. 8-10 साल तक खाली चला कॉलेज. कुछ लोअर कास्ट बच्चे आए, तो प्रिंसिपल वॉज वेरी हैप्पी. प्रिंसिपल रोट टू द DPI kindly allow us to fill this with the so-called lower classes. Caste word नहीं use करता, class. जरा polite word है ना class, है ना? Caste थोड़ा खराब लगता. Lower classes of people. आज भी हम लोग जरा शुगर कोटेड करके कहते हैं ना, डिसप्रिविलेज्ड, अनप्रिविलेज्ड ऐसे करते हैं. तो उससे कहा कि हमें लोअर क्लास का ओपन कर दे दीजिए. डीपीआई बिगड़ गया. डीपीआई wrote back, shot back, saying, look, we have come here to rule. I have seen this in Bombay State Archive. Education Report 1852. It says, no, we have come here to rule, not to cause social upheaval. If you allow the lower classes a higher type of training, when they go back to the society, they will demand higher status. This will be a big problem. Don't do that. Wait. Once the Brahmins realize that there is money in modern medicine, they will come in dozens and hundreds. This is what happened. After 20 years, फिर क्लास भर गई. अपर कास्ट को पता चला इसमें बिजनेस है. आज देख रहे हैं आज क्या मेडिकल प्रोफेशन कितना फल फूल रहा है. हर जगह नर्सिंग होम. शुरुआत वहाँ से. ये है 19th century. Isn't it not close to us? Is that DPI observation not accurate? Last thing I would like to tell my young friends, don't throw the baby with the bath water. हमने बात की, पहली बात इंटरोगेशन, दूसरी बात की ट्रांजिशन, है ना, तीसरी कही कि इट्स ऑल क्लोज टू योर शोल्डर्स. वी आर कैरिंग दैट. वी आर नॉट आइसोलेटेड फ्रॉम 18th century. द वेट इज हियर. फोर्थ चीज़ मैं जो कहने जा रहा हूँ वो बस यहीं पे आखिरी बात होगी कि take these things in proper context. Don't get emotional. History is not for emotions. History is for reason. Unfortunately, history is being used for emotional purposes. ये WhatsApp history नहीं है. हमारी लाइब्रेरी इतिहास बताएगी, यूनिवर्सिटी बताएगी, WhatsApp नहीं. तो history should not be used for emotional purposes. It's a highly rational exercise which should be done with the spirit of a scientist. That is why history of science is significant. I would rather argue history itself is science. If it is not science, sorry. Thank you very much for the approach.
Thank you, Professor Deepak Kumar, sir, for this wonderful talk. When you were talking about the translation and commentaries, I was reminded of something that has very recently picked up in European academia about the post-classical Arabic literature. Earlier it was believed that with the decline of the Abbasid Caliphate, actually the classical Arabic literature also lost its originality. And it was argued that the people were basically writing commentaries and translating them. There was no originality invested in them. But now these commentaries and translations have been subjected to closer scrutiny, and scholars have found that if you read those commentaries in depth, you would realize that these scholars were actually critically engaging with those texts. And there is a lot of critical intervention going on, which then tells us a lot more about their mindset and their belief system. Thank you for this, Professor Deepak Kumar, sir. Now I would invite our chief guest, Professor V. Shinde, sir. But before that, I would like to say a few words about his work and his journey. Professor Shinde is one of, I would say, the world's renowned archaeologist. He was earlier the Vice Chancellor of the prestigious Deccan College, Pune. He has been living in Hyderabad for the past 1.5 years as research fellow. He actually did his, if I'm not wrong, his master's and PhD both from the Deccan College, Pune. By the way, if you don't know what Deccan College is, then you must understand that Deccan College is certainly the most prestigious research institute for archaeology in India, which is equally respected across the globe. For the last 40 years, he has been a pioneer in research in archaeology, and he particularly specializes in field archaeology. And he's worked quite extensively on proto-history of South Asia. These are very difficult terms, but I'm sure that you would be able to make sense of them. He has primarily and largely directed a vast number of excavations around the country and has participated in the archaeological excavation drive around the world. He has participated in the excavation exercises of the Harappan sites in Gujarat, Haryana, Chalcolithic sites in Madhya Pradesh and Deccan, proto-historic and early historic sites in Rajasthan and Maharashtra. Most recently, he has also directed and still in charge of a very prestigious research project at the largest Harappan site of Rakhigari in Haryana. He is, as you might have gained by now, he is a meticulous researcher, but at the heart, he is a very good teacher as well. And he was telling me stories about his visiting different universities and institutes just for the sake of interaction and teaching. Why? Because he likes to interact with people, and one of his profound initiatives has been that he founded a society called Society of South Asian Archaeology with the purpose to promote and make people aware and sensitize about the preservation and knowledge of the incredible prehistoric Indian heritage. And this society works with people and then sensitize them and then enable them to understand the important heritage of India. And he's also in the process, he's working with the government to build a knowledge city in Haryana. The government is already building a tourism museum in Haryana. So a lot of things are happening with the consultation of Professor Shinde sir, who is well known in this field. Besides, there's no need to suggest that he has extensively worked on such areas and themes. Today morning only I was talking to him and then mentioned one of his very interesting and remarkable work that he, along with his colleagues, published in 2019 in two prestigious journals called Cell and Science. The paper was about, he and along with his team, they analyze the single DNA sample from the Harappan population. And their major argument was that they seriously challenged and questioned the Aryan theory. The reception was mixed. There were many critics, but I believe that is the hallmark of a good research and paper, which generates conversation and curiosity among people. But across the spectrum, there was consensus among scholars of the fact that maybe for the first time, Professor Shinde has brought together groups of historians, archaeologists, geneticists together to understand and make sense of the Harappan civilization in the light of recent medical discovery of the DNA. And then scholars were also convinced that this might open up new possibilities for research in future. He has published widely. I would just like to mention two books. He published in 1998 his probably PhD dissertation, which is very dense. It's called Early Settlements in Central Tapi Basin. In 2016, he published Chalcolithic South Asia, Aspects of Crafts and Technologies. published from New Delhi. Lastly, in 2020, along with his colleague, he published Cultural Heritage of South Asia and Beyond, Recent Perspectives. With this, may I now invite our chief guest, Professor Shinde sir.
Good morning to one and all. Thank you, Ikram, for this very lengthy introduction. First, I would like to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Hassan, for inviting me here and giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you. Also, I'm happy that now Professor Deepak Kumar, we know each other for the last many years, but somehow we were not really meeting frequently. So I was so happy to meet him, and it was wonderful travel, in fact, from CCMB to this place. When we were traveling, we could discuss a lot of issues. Also, my old friend, Professor Danish Moin, we were, in fact, when he was in Nashik, we were interacting frequently. And I know his contribution because we have very few numismatists in the world, in the country, and he's one of the leading one. So I was so happy to meet him, and I was so happy to meet Ikram. Ikram, I was so impressed, in fact, because I once delivered an online lecture, and he was introducing the speakers. So I was so happy I was impressed by his overall behavioral and attitude. So friends, I'm really happy that I'm here. But it is also sad that there is hardly any interaction between archaeologists and historians. We don't have a really good relation. Professor Deepak Kumar can tell us. But both are so important. And archaeology particularly is so important in the country, because we try to generate the actual evidence. But at the same time, there is a lot of misunderstanding among the people also. Particularly, people think that why history, archaeology should be studied. I'll give two examples. Ikramul has mentioned about Deccan College. Certainly, this is the second oldest modern education institute in the country, established in 1821. And in 1939, the Department of Archaeology was established by Professor S.D. Sankalia. I'm sure that you have heard his name. But S.D. Sankalia did his PhD in Institute of Archaeology in London. And he came, and there were a lot of offers to him. Even Archaeological Survey of India said that you come and take charge of the Archaeological Survey of India. He had offers from Gujarat also. But he preferred to come to Deccan College because he wanted to establish this particular department and initiate, the fundamental research at the place. And therefore, what he did, in fact, was that, he established for the first time, and that this is the only institute in the world where we have basic laboratories for carrying out basic research. Because of that, people, particularly scholars from Deccan College, they were able to, publish very good quality research in international journals also. So he strived very hard, and by 1960s, 61, he had developed full-fledged department. And then he invited one very prominent, influential politicians from Maharashtra to visit the department. And after seeing the department, the politicians say that, what is the use of the department? I think government should close down this type of departments because we are only spending and in return we are not able to generate any funding for the state. We don't blame them because Professor Sankalaya realized that, that this is not his fault. It is the fault of the professionals, fault of the archaeologists, because we never tried to take the subject to the people. And then after that, Professor Sankalaya started writing. Earlier, there used to be very prominent Hindi journal, Dharma Yug. So he used to publish, in Dharma Yug and, various other, popular magazines, journals. And, he started spreading that. And, outreach is very important, for the subject, both in archaeology and history. And we also followed that. Some of us, my guru, my students are following this. And we are trying to make efforts, whenever we excavate the site, we stay there for 3 to 4 months. We have a camp. And there, we try to, involve the people. We make awareness about the importance, significance of the heritage among them. And by the beginning of 21st century, I thought that now people have understood the subject. They know the importance, significance of the subject. But then, there was a big shock for me in 2012. I was excavating one small site in Haryana, very close to Rakhigarhi. The name of the place is Karsola, very small site. And there, we had one special visitor one day in the form of former Prime Minister's daughter, Professor Upinder Singh, who was professor in Delhi University, history professor. She came with her students. And naturally, being a daughter of Prime Minister, there were a lot of security IAS officers with her. And I was explaining to her and to the students the remains that we excavated. And in the background, people were murmuring. Some said that, what a waste of the, national wealth. Why these people have come all the way from Pune and working in a small village. Some say that maybe there is a wealth buried here. Maybe they want to dig out this wealth. And this was the conversation happening between the IAS and IPS officers. And lastly, a very interesting comment came that these people, all of us, because when we excavate, we ourselves do that work. So somebody said that that these people did not get an opportunity to play in the dust when they were children. They are playing now. So this is the kind of misunderstanding about the people among the common people. And if the cream of the society also has this type of apathy, then perhaps it is very difficult. And therefore, all of us, we should make efforts to tell people, what is the importance of this particular subject. History, in fact, is becoming, it was becoming boring. The history which I learned, I taught the same history to my students. My students are teaching the same history. Why, it is not really becoming interesting? Mainly because, the lack of coordination between different disciplines. Unless we involve, Professor Divyak Kumar has rightly mentioned that history, archaeology is science. Unless we involve specialists from different disciplines, perhaps this discipline will not grow. It has started growing now, of course, but that is important, that involving people from different disciplines is very important. And the first stage, of course, is the coming close of the archaeologists and historians. So Professor R.S. Sharma, in fact, all of you know his work from Delhi University. He tried very hard, in fact, in this particular respect. And for the first time, he synthesized the textual sources and the archaeological sources. And he tried to bring out the true history. He worked, in fact, on the Gupta age. And Gupta history, of course, was built, in fact, was reconstructed mainly on the written records. And there are a lot of, maybe sometimes, we have exaggeration in fact in the written records. Sometimes maybe data is, maybe we are not able to maybe, interpret that properly. But then, when you consider the archaeological data, a lot of archaeological data has been generated, in fact, for this particular period. Then he realized that, it is not reflecting the golden age in the archaeological data. And therefore, he had different conclusions. So what is here important here is that, these conclusions are not important, but the method that he has initiated or introduced was very important. Unfortunately, we are not really following this particular method in the country, except, to some extent in Deccan College. We did, two important, research in the Deccan region. One on the early strike phase, on the Satavahans, in fact, the early dynasty which flourished in this part also. And again, the history of Satavahan was written on the basis of written records, mostly, on the basis of the information that we get in the inscriptions in coins. I excavated one site called Junnar, a very small site. And there, I realized that, that the prosperous phase, as was depicted, by the historians, is not there, in fact, in the archaeological data at all. So different, so we tried to, use that data, in fact, to reconstruct the true history. And, we also worked on a very important fort in India, fort in Maharashtra, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Fort, Raigad. Britishers had, written some, their written documents, and they wrote that, this particular fort was destroyed by the Britishers. And it was burned down, the whole fort was burned down. Recently, the government of Maharashtra is developing this fort from tourism point of view. And they invited us to check the archaeological data on the fort. For the first time, in fact, we did the archaeology of a fort. And the data that we found was completely different from what is written, in fact, in the text. We did not find, if it was a burnt, we did not find any burnt layers at this particular fort. So the example that I wanted to give you is that unless we use all the, maybe available sources, if you use only one source, perhaps, it will be misleading. So it is important that we use a lot of different sources. That is one step. And the next step is that we also bring in a lot of different, scientists, different, experts from different fields. And that is what, we did, in fact, at the site of Rakhigarhi. So this part is, very important that, when we start writing, we should make history as a very challenging and very, interesting subject. And then only perhaps, we will be able to, enjoy writing history and doing research on history. So that is one important part that I wanted to bring to your notice. Now, what we are not doing, whether we are, it's a modern history, medieval history, or ancient Indian history, is what is the contribution that we have made, in fact, in the history of the country and in the history of the world. That needs to be done also. Because, I worked on the Harappan civilization. And we know that Indians, I consider Harappans as the founders of the Indian culture, because most of the traditions, most of the knowledge system that was introduced by the Harappans, that has continued till today. And there are a lot of communities in South Asia which are dependent on the knowledge system which was created by the Harappans. They are still following. Their subsistence is based on the Harappan knowledge system even today. In Khambat region particularly, there are a lot of families who are making the replicas of the Harappan beads as it is by using the Harappan technology even today. And they are doing, roaring business. In fact, there is demand for this, for these beads from all over the world. So that knowledge is so important. We convey, we study, reconstruct the technology used by the Harappans, and we supply this technology to the people who are following this particular, maybe craft. Similarly, in case of pottery also, there are a lot of potters, in fact, all over South Asia. They are following the same methods as our ancestors have followed. But we know that, in the past, the technology was slightly advanced. And today, of course, we are not using that advanced technology. So we are using, we are supplying this knowledge to the people for making their products better so that, they have better market value. So that is kind of, efforts needs to be done. And, what are the important contributions that we have made? Which is important. That, Indians were the first in the world to, teach how to build modern city. I think in Dholavira, I'll just give the example. I'm not talking about the 18th century and 19th century, but the knowledge that was created maybe 4,500 years ago, it has continued till today, and through 18th century, 19th century also. Why, there's a break, I'll come to that point later. But everybody if you get a chance, you should visit the site of Dholavira, which is in Kutch, part of Gujarat. There's a small island called Khadir Island. Now, Harappans developed this particular city in a area which was very, very adverse, and that area was desert even that time also. And Harappans had to develop a city there because this area is on the main trade route from Sindh to Saurashtra. And that trade route was extensively used by the Harappans for carrying out a trade. So before establishing this particular city, the Harappans studied the geography and geology of the region first. And then they properly planned a well-planned city there. It is not that they simply went there and started building houses, not like that. There's a proper planning for that. So they knew that there is always dearth of water there. There were two small streams. One is called Manhar, the other one is Mansar. So they decided to locate the city between these two rivers. And in the desert part, there is occasional rainfall. But whenever there is rainfall, maybe there is a small, flash flood. So what the Harappans did, they were so advanced, to their time. They put series of check dams on both the rivers. And they diverted the entire water inside the settlement. Not a drop of water was escaped, in fact, was not wasted. And inside the settlement, they dug underground water reservoirs. The city has three different parts. In all the different parts, we find at regular intervals the underground water reservoirs dug by the Harappans. So the water was diverted in those reservoirs, and they were connected to each other by underground water channel system. So that they go on filling after one another. So that was a system they created, and they made sure that in the desert part there is always running water available, and that city was not only sustained, but it kept flourishing. So this is the knowledge system which is so important. In fact, I interacted with the Niti Aayog people recently, and I suggested that if this system is followed today, the desert part, Kutch, which is a desert now, that part can be converted into Greenland, provided we use our ancient knowledge system today. So that this type of knowledge system is so important. The other example that I would like to give, which is also relevant, is what we learn from apart from this, what we learn from our ancient knowledge. The Harappans flourished mainly because of the trade. They did not have natural resources available within their region. They developed good relations with the contemporary population and made sure that there is a flow of raw materials in their settlements. They had technology with them. They processed these goods, made a lot of finished goods, and supplied this finished goods to the same people from whom they acquired the raw material. That is how they started generating a lot of wealth. And that wealth was used by these people for developing cities and towns. The first urbanization was developed by these people in true sense in the world. And I always give the example of Japan. I'm still visiting professor in Kyoto. I stayed in Japan for almost 2 years. And I visited Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and nobody would have believed that after seeing this havoc, nobody would have believed that Japan will rise again, completely destroyed. But friends, Japan could rise within 15 years. And the policy that they adopted was exactly same as the Harappans. I don't say that they have learned directly from the Harappans, but this knowledge has spread. And not only Indians, but people from different parts of the world, they have learned this knowledge system from us. Yoga tradition, for example, it goes back to the Harappans. We have actual images, terracotta figurines in yogic posture. That science was developed, and today that almost 170, 80 countries are following this yoga tradition. So Japan had technology with them. So after the Second World War, they started importing raw materials from India, China, which were developing countries. They process these raw materials in their factories, in their workshops, and they supplied the finished goods to the same countries from whom they were acquiring raw material. And that is how Japan could become a world economic power within 15 years. They could showcase that in 1964 during the Tokyo Olympics. So that is the importance of the study that we do. This is very, very important. Now, why this knowledge had disappeared? You boast of a great knowledge system in the country. We know that the Britishers came here. They have certainly contributed immensely, in fact, to the development of this region in one way or the other way. But when they came here, they gave the impression to the whole world that we have come here to civilize these people. They always thought that the Indians are barbaric, maybe not educated, illiterate. So we want to illiterate them, we want to civilize them. But when the Britishers only started the excavations at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, when they discovered this advanced civilization, they were very surprised because they never imagined that that India will have such an advanced civilization, that to 5,000 years old. Even Europe did not have this type of remains, this type of civilization in the entire European region. And then after that, they had a great, question mark, in front of them, how to explain now. But then they said that yes, we can see the remains. Of course, there are remains of very advanced civilization, which are 5,000 years old. But the people who made them were not Indians. They came from outside. They came from the West. And that is how that Aryan debate was started by them. And then when they were ruling this country, they realized that India has such a strong knowledge system. That was a part of our education system. In fact, developed maybe around 7,000 BCE, 9,000 years ago, perfected by the Harappans, and then continued till today. And this was a part of our education system at Nalanda and Takshila. You know that Indians have given this particular concept to the world. The earliest universities were developed, established in Indian subcontinent. The Takshila was the first university, which I have visited in fact a couple of times in Pakistan, and Nalanda. And there are references that nearly 10,000 students used to come from different countries, 40 different countries, to learn about Indian knowledge system. So it was so robust. Britishers realized that if this particular system is allowed to continue, perhaps it will be very difficult to rule this particular country. They came, the Europeans started coming maybe around beginning of 16th century. 1598, in fact, Vasco da Gama came here. And you know that Vasco da Gama was, we always write that Vasco da Gama came to India. He found his way to India, but that is not true. In fact, he came to Gulf region, and there he lost the way. In fact, he did not know where to go, and there he met one Gujarati merchant. His name was Kanji Malam, and Kanji Malam, in fact, brought him to India. And Vasco da Gama is written. In fact, we are developing. In fact, this National Maritime Museum, in fact, in Lothal, where we found the earliest dockyard. We have taught, in fact, the world how to build ships and boats, not the Romans. So there, in fact, in this particular, museum, we are showcasing even the maritime trade tradition, during the 18th century, 19th century also. So there we are showcasing the real history, in fact, here. So the Vasco da Gama came here. After that, a lot of Europeans started coming here. So the point here that I want to make here, that the system was so robust, and Macaulay, who developed or formulated the modern education system in the country, he intentionally made sure that the modern education system is kept alive, kept away from this modern education system. And they impose on us the modern education system, the European education system on us. So because of that, we lost track of our education system. And even we have a lot of archaeological material, lot of archaeological data, in fact, from 18th century, 19th century also. In fact, in archaeology, we have a separate branch called industrial archaeology. So now, in fact, time has come that we again try to synthesize the archaeological and literary sources and try to bring out the true history. I'm sure that a lot of you will be looking for this type of opportunities. And there are a number of institutions now in the country who are helping archaeology develop as a scientific discipline. A lot of IITs have taken initiative in this. Even DST, Department of Science and Technology, has taken initiative. Even AICT also has a separate wing of ancient knowledge system. So now we can make use of this favorable condition that is happening in the country and try to undertake interdisciplinary, inter-institutional scientific study on this particular subject. I'm sure that you'll be deliberating on this particular aspect even today, and I'm happy that that I could be part of this deliberation at least for some time, and I wish all of you best, and I look forward to see you again. In fact, I would like to visit your university again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. You talked about the importance of archaeology. I would like to assure you that we may need your help and assistance and guidance in future to incorporate inputs of archaeology in our syllabus and course. And I must also say that we in the university and the department would also like to participate in your mission to popularize and bring this knowledge to people. Thank you for your insight, sir. I'm confident that you must agree with me that no one would have been a better choice to chair the inaugural session of a seminar on 18th and 19th centuries than the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Anil Hasan Sahab, who himself is a scholar of Persian literature and loves to talk about poetry and literature and how these categories have transformed over the years. We all know that when he talks, we wish that he never stops. With these few words, I would request the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Anil Hasan Sahab, for his presidential remark.
Professor Shinde, Professor Deepak Kumar, Professor Danish, Ikram, many colleagues, Sajjad Sahab is here, Rafiullah Azmi Sahab, Basha was sitting here. Friends, you know, I'm not a historian, but caught between history and archaeology. But to say something that reminds me, and it should have been taken as preamble of this gathering, where Professor Shinde tells that we must spread knowledge. Keeping it at home is really not conducive for the health of knowledge. So therefore, the subject matter must be taken to the common man, which is, of course, very necessary, and that's how you see knowledge goes from heart to heart. And discoveries are there, new researches are there. Today you talk about some other civilizations also. Earlier we were confined to Harappan, but yes, Harappa can be seen in so many corners of India. My only regret is that literature is not given a serious thought by the historians. And I am a student of literature. Professor Deepak Kumar, 100% right when he says that decline is obvious. But one must learn from rise and decline both. When there is a rise, yes, you have certain objects at your hand. You can make use of them. But at the time of decline, you see, how to go about it. We have lost so many scholars. You go through the history and you will find Bedil in Azimabad, which is Patna today. Now, Bedil was discovered by a person who was not an Indian, who was Uzbek. And then the person started searching and named him Abul Maani. Look at Abul Maani, this title was given by an outsider. We, who was all the time sitting there looking at each other, writing, and such a beautiful literature, you see, coming out of Bedil. Nobody paid attention. In the 18th century, Nemat Khan-e-Ali, who was well associated with Aurangzeb, who wrote Jangnama Nemat Khani. Jangnama, who wrote beautiful words, you will find. But after 1907, where was he, Nemat Khan-e-Ali? Nobody is there to discover Nemat Khan-e-Ali. And similar is situation when Qatil migrated from Delhi to Calcutta. only few couplets we recite. Where is Qatil? Qatil is nowhere. Treasure too, we have lost. We have not been able to pay attention to these, variety of subjects, variety of lessons. And that's how today we are sitting here and talking about our knowledge system. Because knowledge we have lost. So we have to think about it, how to discover the entire knowledge system and whatever knowledge is given to us. Now Professor Deepak Kumar also, because I know him, Professor Shinde, I have heard him on so many occasions, in fact, in so many places, and Professor Deepak Kumar, last 20-25 minutes, our association, more than that, I think, 30 years. And now he is here, he's one of us. Shibli Nomani has written in his history of literature that there were as many as 350 scholars in the court of Akbar, and Abdur Rahim Khane Khanan was looking after them. 350, more than 350. And after their generations, when we say that Sheikh Mubarak came, and then two sons, Abul Fazl and Faizi. But do you think that Abul Fazl and Faizi, their generations, do you have any knowledge about them? We can talk about the prince and princess. Yes, you came down to Zebun Nisa, if you say the downfall of Mughal Empire, you see Zebun Nisa, whose nom de plume was Makhfi, you see, she wrote, and poetry is still there because she was sitting in the palace. She was daughter of an emperor, a very powerful empire. That's how you know. But how about these people? There were people. And 19th century, when we go through the history, we will find many discoveries are there. I don't deny. But the history, there's so many things, missing. It's a real decline of knowledge. In 19th century, I am telling you, go through history, you will find. Aqil Khan Razi was one of the governors of Aurangzeb, governor of Gujarat, who wrote so many narrative poems also, a versatile poet also, a governor, a planner. Even in Khutbat-e-Tayyibat, you will not find this name mentioned over there after a gap of time. Here was he, such a brilliant man. So these things are happening in the history, and we have to locate them at any cost. You say that Adil Shahi and Nizam Shahi here, you see, and Bahmani kingdom, they started migrating, That's how you will see here in this region, you see, a kind of interaction between the Persianate culture and then the Telugu language and culture and combination, and then coming, you see, Dakkani. Now today we say Dakkani. Why Dakkani? Because of certain interactions. And Shinde Sahab, the artists, the artisans, they came here. Poets. Now Wali Dakkani, all of a sudden, Wali Dakkani is appearing in Urdu literature, and you say Baba Adam of Urdu literature. It's not just sudden development, something happening. It's over a period of time, you see. The British came, and then they started, in 19th century only, they started spreading vernacular formula, early 19th century. And then finally, you see, a person like Mirza Ghalib, who was writing in Persian, All of a sudden he thought of writing in Urdu language. Then he rendered Urdu Diwan. Books are as majmua Urdu ke bi range manas. He said कि उसमें रंग नहीं है, रंग फारसी में. But Mirza Ghalib became Mirza Ghalib because of his Urdu poetry. Because Persians never recognized Mirza Ghalib. Bedil was recognized after Islamic Revolution. You see, one single book, and that comparative study on, by a person, you see, in Iran, who rendered a book, Bedil and Sohrab-e-Sipehri. My student is sitting there. That, Sohrab-e-Sipehri, a contemporary poet, and the Bedil, That's how you see things are missing, the links are missing. So we have to create such an awareness, and I fully agree with you that there are, we have treasure trove we should discover. Well, I am not, again I am telling you, I am not really fit to speak, on these subjects, 18th century and 19th century. But one thing you must realize, that there is something called acceptance. Renaissance, Shinde Sahab, when we say that our Renaissance started from 14th century, 15th century, and someone says that the 12th century, let us also talk about what exactly the Renaissance is. When we say Bedari, what is Bedari? Can you see Bedari in isolation? You say that this is Bedari because we are here, you see, we are listening to you, we are seeing you through our naked eye. This is Bedari. Bedari is a sense of realization. Industrial evolution. Where is the date of industrial evolution? There is no date of industrial evolution. It's a process. In 17th century, when mill workers started demanding more wages, then there was, then the mill owners realized that, look, we should have more raw material. Where is the raw material? Then they started searching for. And then they captured West Bengal. It was not West Bengal or East Bengal. You see, it was total Bengal. Such a big, Bengal. Sirajud-Dawla. And 1757, it was captured. And from amongst us, you see, one was Mir Jafar. Don't say that someone else came. Azmast ke barmast. Hum hi hai. Uske zimmedar hum hi hai. Now what happens? There is no realization. In Delhi, 100 years later, 1857, the seat of Delhi was captured. 100 years. What we were doing? Where was our knowledge system? Where were we? Really? Bedari was there? There was no Bedari. How many kilometers away from Delhi? Bengal was captured. 100 years ago. Now, it was 1947 when something we could achieve, another 100 years. Look at it. So Bedari, you define Bedari, where is, this Renaissance and awakening, where is awakening in fact? In Iran also, entire eastern region, I am telling you, Turkey and Iran both, the process of modernization started from 1885 onwards. The entire process of modernization, interactive courses started. But before that, these things were missing. Then Europeans started coming to our ground. We started going to their countries. And then they started, exchange started taking place. And all scientific advancement, what we see today is the culmination of those interactive business, whether for study purposes or for business purposes or for trade and commerce. But yes, today whatever we see, and this must go on. Therefore, we might be able to realize, or we not, our next generation would be able to realize that, yes, our father did something, and therefore, this is the result of their product of labor. That's how realization comes. And when we say that we should remember a date, don't remember a date. remember the entire process. And this is also one, when we discuss here 18th century and 19th century, we will definitely come down to 21st century also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Vice Chancellor Sahab, for your presidential remarks and for rightly pointing out the interaction as the hallmark of renaissance and advancement in learning and knowledge. At the end, may I now invite my colleague, Dr. Khande Parvez Ahmed Sahab, Assistant Professor, Department of History, to extend the vote of thanks.
Adab. It is with great pleasure and gratitude that I stand in front of you today to deliver this vote of thanks. We have just concluded the inaugural session of this seminar, interrogating the 18th and 19th century in Indian history. This seminar would not have been possible without the collective efforts and contribution of many individuals and groups. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest appreciation on behalf of Department of History to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Syed Ainul Hasan Sir, who graced us with his presence. We are honored to have had the privilege of hosting you, sir. Not only you graced this occasion, but your full support and encouragement in different ways make this event happen. Thank you again, sir. I would like to thank our respected registrar, who is not with us due to some last minute medical emergency, but being part of the administration, he also helped us in different ways in conducting this seminar. I convey my thanks to him. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our chief guest, Professor Vasant Shinde sir, former VC Deccan College, Pune, who accepted our invitation within the short notice and joined us. Being a regular visitor, he used to visit our department very often. I, on behalf of Department of History, to Shinde sir for encouraging us. Every time he encourages us by either connecting to us, and he is also with us. Thank you, sir. Also, I would like to thank our keynote speaker, Professor Deepak Kumar, Honorary Professor, Department of History, MANUU. We are fortunate to have him in that department, as he's here as well. Let me confess, it is with his guidance and encouragement that we are able to, to conceptualize this seminar. Thank you, sir. I want to thank our esteemed guests who joined us today, or who are going to join us today, and who are going to make this program very special. I especially thank Sajjad Shahid Saab from INTEC, who is with us here, Professor Varghese from Hyderabad Central University, Professor E. Sudharani from Ambedkar Open University, Hyderabad, Dr. Sheikh Mehboob Basha, our senior colleague from DD MANUU, and Professor B. Lavanya, Department of History, Osmania University. I want to thank other faculty members, especially the Dean School of Social Science. She is not here, but she was a part of this, whole program. She, due to some, personal reasons, she couldn't join us, but she was with us. Her wishes were with us, and I extend my thanks to her also. I want to thank other senior faculty members who joined us from different departments. From Persian department, there is Rizwan Saab is here, Kaisar Bhai is here, our librarian Akhtar Saab is here, and from education department, many people have joined us from political science department. I might have forgotten some names, but I extend my thanks to all of you. I took this liberty to thank our head, who is also a speaker in this program, Professor Danish Muin, who is the brainchild of this program, making this gathering happen within this short period of time, knowing it well that our exams have just finished and we are at the end of this, this academic session. But we finally managed to do it. My other colleagues from Department of History, Professor Azmi, coordinator Ikramul Haq Saab, my colleague Khalid Dawood Saab, and our GOS, Pion, and research scholar students who tirelessly worked in making this seminar a successful endeavor. I thank you all. And in the end, I want to thank the IMC team also, who with their technical support help us in conducting this seminar. And I hope that later on maybe the people who are here because of rain, exams, but other people, other students and the audience will join us when they will post this on the YouTube. I thank you all for your support. I want to thank lastly but not leastly to everyone who are here, who are present in this hall, the students, teachers, individuals who really your presence is, it meant a lot, and it is surely going to make this seminar a successful endeavor. I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pervez. May I now request the engineering section staff to play the national anthem, please.